Mercedes has just released the new C-Class. The question is it better than the BMW 3 Series, or should you forget both of these Germans and just go fully electric and get a Tesla Model 3? Well, in this video, we're going to find out.
Buying a new car? Then head to carwow and my team will help you find your next car at a fair price. Carwow, your one-stop car buying comparison site.
Let's start this video by talking about the prices. So the BMW 3 Series range kicks off from around £33,000. The Mercedes C-Class range starts from around £39,000 and the Tesla Model 3 range starts from £41,000. However, that's not really comparing like with like. When you spec these cars up for similar trim levels and performance, they work out roughly the same price. For instance, this is the hybrid version of the BMW and it starts from £40,000. That is the hybrid version of the C-Class and that starts from around £42,000, and obviously the Tesla there's one version, it's electric. Now if you want to make sure you're paying a fair price for the next car you buy, click on the pop-out banner up there or follow the link in the description to go to CarWow. Alternatively, after this video, just simply Google "Help Me CarWow" and my team and I will help you choose the right car for you and get it for a fair price for one of our trusted dealers. Now let's compare the design of these cars. There is no mistaking the Tesla. To be fair, it's not the most exciting looking thing, but it's not that offensive either. There are a few things that do annoy me about it. There's not that much choice in terms of paint colours nor alloy wheel designs, though at least the entry-level model gets 18 inches as standard and these rather cool aero wheels for reduced drag and improved efficiency. And there's some features I like, such as the poppy outed door handles seem quite nice. Oh yeah, and oh yes, of course, frameless windows. Lovely. Compared to the Tesla, the BMW just looks a lot more muscular, though it's also a lot busier. So the Tesla has smooth flowing lines, it's very simplistic. This has a lot going on, different surfaces, different shapes, different angles, the front, back and down the side. Also, the alloy wheel sizes start at 17 inches. Now if you go for M Sport, you get 18 inches, and really you do need the N Sport version of this car for the more aggressive nose, as lesser specs can just look a little bit meh. Also, I'm not sure about this, right? The charge port for this plug-in hybrid, it's a little bit too big, and the one on this car doesn't quite fit right. Don't like that. Finally, the Mercedes combines the smooth simplicity of the Tesla with the swagger of the 3 Series. And for me, it's the best looking. I really do like this paint as well. It's gorgeous. It's not all perfect though. Alloy wheels, once again, start from 17 inches. And while these are the 18s, the same size as on the Tesla, they look slightly smaller just because of this black rim that they have. It sort of makes the car look a bit underwheeled. The door handles aren't as cool as the Teslas, but the worst thing on this car, which I just don't know why Mercedes does it, it's got awful fake exhaust pipes. At least the ones on the BMW are real, and obviously the Tesla doesn't have any. Doesn't even try to have any. It's electric. The Mercedes also has the best design here on the inside as well. It really does look pretty cool. There's nice textures to the top of the dash. The shape of the air vents is really nice. Expensive feeling leather, but it's not all perfect. Bits do feel a bit cheap, and look at that, the way that moves. It's a bit odd. However, it does feel like a mini S-Class, and you get 2 big digital screens, though these are the larger screens. Aston, you get slightly smaller screens. But it is interesting, isn't it, that Mercedes has gone for a portrait central screen, a bit like Tesla introduced. The actual infotainment system itself is fairly easy to use, and this being the hybrid has some specific hybrid menus where you can manage your battery and all that kind of stuff. Overall though, very nice cabin this. Very nice. Inside the BMW, things are a little bit more dour than in the Mercedes, though it's not ugly and it is rather functional. For instance, I like the fact that you have actual physical buttons for the climate control, unlike in the Merc. Now, unlike in the Merc, you've got a landscape infotainment screen, but like with the Mercedes, if you want the biggest screen possible, you have to pay extra for it, and it's the same with the digital dials. Speaking of which, this eDrive hybrid version has some special blue dials. Wow. Now, the thing that really stands out for me about the BMW is the quality. I think out of all 3 cars, it just feels the most solidly built. Inside the Tesla, it's very different to the other 2 cars. I mean, it's so minimalist. There are no buttons really at all. Just want to open the door and a few on the steering wheel. Everything is done through this huge screen, and it is a really nice, big, crisp display, though it can be a bit of a faff to get used to the different menus and things that you have to do. For instance, sometimes you have to mess around and go into a menu to be able to do things such as move the door mirrors. But once you live with this car, you get used to it, and it's actually quite a good system. The one thing that is A big problem with it is the speedo, because you don't have a speedo right in front of you, it's actually just there, so you're always having to look across to check out what speed you're doing. However, there is one thing that's good about it, and that's the voice commands. Now the other cars have voice commands, but the ones in the Tesla actually work, and it does understand what you want. One of the problems that you might think is that you don't have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto like you do in the other two cars. But you don't really need to connect your phone up to the Tesla, because it's got Google Maps anyway if you pay for the right subscription, and you've got Spotify and stuff like that playing through Tesla's account, so you just pay a bit extra money and you got all the functionality you need, and it's all dead simple. Plus the design is just so cool and relaxing. Less relaxing is parts of the build quality. Doesn't feel quite as solid as the Germans, though to be fair, it's not really that far behind. Here in the back of the Tesla, there's sufficient room. So knee room's pretty good, headroom's all right. Even people over 6 foot will just about have enough space. And it's great that you get this glass roof as standard. It makes it feel really light back here, especially if you go for these bright white seats. Another great thing about this car is that you have a completely flat floor, so there is lots of footroom for everyone if you need to carry a middle passenger. Slight issue though is that the front seats are quite low, so you can't stretch out underneath them, and because you've got a whole bunch of batteries underneath the floor is quite high in relation to the seat base, so you do feel like your knees are a little bit higher than you'd like, and that can make it a little bit more uncomfortable on longer journeys. Without a glass roof and with this dark interior trim, it's a lot gloomier here in the back of the 3 Series. However, I'm ever so slightly more comfortable. For starters, the seat base is slightly deeper and it's high off the ground. Plus, I can stretch my feet out underneath the seat in front. Knee room's about the same as the Tesla. Headroom, very similar. Another feature of the 3 Series is this. Look, you've got some through loading, which you don't get on the Tesla. What's not so good though is this huge hump in the floor. So if you want to carry 3 people in the back, that's going to get in the way of the middle person's feet. The C-Class has the same problem as the 3 Series, with this huge hump in the centre of the floor, which means if you want to carry 3 people in the back at once, it's not ideal. However, if you're just carrying 2 people at once, this is the nicest car to be in the back of. The seats are just that little bit more sculpted, feels just that touch more roomy than the other 2 cars. And look, I've got a glass roof on this car. It does eat into headroom a little bit compared to not having the roof, but there's still enough headroom for people over 6 foot. I like it back here. Another thing to note is, look, yes, it has the through loading like the BMW had, and the Tesla doesn't. So unlike the other 2 cars, it's pop out. It's just a little bit better thought through. Now let's compare these cars' luggage carrying capabilities. So the boot capacity on the Mercedes C-Class is 455 litres, though if you have the hybrid version, because you've got batteries underneath the boot floor, the boot capacity reduces all the way to 315 litres. And because you've got no underfloor storage, you have to keep your charging cables in the boot, in this bag, and they take up space. Moving on to the BMW. So its boot capacity is normally 480 litres, which is really good. However, once again with the hybrid, because you've got batteries under there, the boot capacity reduces to 375 litres. At least here you do have some underfloor storage for all your cables. Finally then, the Tesla. So its boot capacity is 425 litres. You've also got some extra storage under there, which is good. And there's even a front boot as well with 117 litre capacity, and that's where I keep the cables on this car. So this has the best load carrying capability. It's not all perfect though. If you want to fold down the rear seats on the Tesla, you have to go round to the back seats to do it like that. Whereas on the Mercedes and the BMW, you can do it from the boot. Still, overall, this is the best for carrying stuff. The Tesla isn't quite as good as the other cars though when it comes to fitting a child's seat. The main reason is that the Isofix anchor points are harder to get to, so you have to just try and locate them in between the seat back and the seat base. It can be a little bit hard to do, whereas in the BMW and the Mercedes you have flip-up covers. I'm very worried about hurting this lovely leather. I think that's there. Is that one there? No. All right, finally got it. Okay. Yeah, I got it. Now this isn't a problem once you've got the seat located, and there is enough room. Look, there's plenty of room for a rear-facing seat. Actually better than in the BMW, about the same as in the Mercedes. But if you're regularly moving the seat from car to car, constantly trying to fit it and undo it is a bit of an arse. Now we need to compare the propulsion systems from these cars. Now the reason I say that is because with the Mercedes and the BMW you can get them as petrol or diesel cars, or if you want some electrification to save some money in terms of company car tax, you can get these hybrids. So in the case of the Mercedes, you have a 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine mated to an electric motor, and combined you have 312 horsepower. Now you can also get a diesel hybrid which has a 2-litre diesel with the electric motor with 306 horsepower. Now the BMW, that has a 2-litre turbocharged petrol mated to an electric motor with 292 horsepower. As for the battery sizes, this has a battery capacity of 12 kilowatt hours, which gives you an electric only range of just 37 miles. The Mercedes has a battery capacity of 25 kilowatt hours, which gives you an electric only range of 62 miles. Now you can charge the Mercedes on a rapid DC charger of up to 55 kilowatts. With the BMW, you can only charge it using AC up to a maximum of 22 kilowatts. Let's move on to the Tesla. So this is the standard range plus version of the Tesla. It's the entry level version, which means you've got a single electric motor, and it gives you 272 horsepower. Now you can get dual motor versions of this car with more power and more performance, but I'm just going to talk about this car here. In terms of the battery capacity, this standard range plus model has a 54 kilowatt hour battery, which gives you a range of 278 miles. Now you can charge this thing at a rate of 170 kilowatts, which means that you can actually charge this car fully quicker than you can charge both those two cars fully, and obviously you get way more electric only range. Now, I'm not quite sure why we've got the bonnet up on this, because obviously it's got no engine. Actually, if you want to compare all the engines, motors and specs and prices of these cars, I've actually created a dedicated page for these cars on Carwow, and if you click on the pop-out banner up there, I'll follow the link in the description, you can go check it out and do all your homework. Anyway, let's drive these things. I'm going to start off in the 3 Series, and it's nice and quiet when you're just driving around slowly in electric power. You can tell it sort of suits the car, but there is something that I'm noticing compared to a normal diesel or petrol 3 Series, and that's the fact that it just feels a little bit more uncomfortable over bumps. Reason being, all the electrical system adds weight, about 200 kilos, and so they have to fit this car with slightly firmer suspension to prevent it from like leaning about loads in the bends because of that added weight. You notice it a little bit when you go over things like speed humps, which I'm about to go over now. Yeah. It's just not as comfy as the standard car. Is it worth it though for the silence when you're just driving around town? It's a decent trade-off. Now if you do suddenly need to accelerate, you put your foot down there, and it takes a second for the car to go, oh, you want to accelerate, and then it makes the petrol motor start up and it has to blend it all with gears. It's not the most seamless in terms of acceleration, but once you're accelerating, it's fairly nippy, this thing. Now, one of the things that the 3 Series is always good at, and that's the way it goes round corners. And because this hybrid is heavy, it's just not quite as sharp feeling as the standard car. The standard version of the 3 Series would be the sportiest to drive, but this hybrid, yet again, is hamstrung slightly by the weight. Will most people notice? Probably not in day-to-day driving, but when the opportunity presents itself on a twisty bit of road, you'd probably rather be in the standard car. When you're going at higher speeds, you know, this plug-in hybrid's absolutely fine. The only thing is you're going to rinse through your battery pretty quickly, and you're just going to be relying on the petrol motor. There'll always be a bit of battery in reserve for overtaking, but yet again, you do have to wait for the gearbox and the motor and the engine to work in harmony to give you the power you need. But once you've got it all hooked up, it does hurry along at quite a decent rate, this thing. It's not a bad car to drive, this plug-in hybrid version of the 3 Series. It's just not quite as good as a standard car. Jumping out of the 3 Series and straight into this C-Class, you can tell this has been set up with softer suspension. As a result, it just deals with bumps better than that BMW. For instance, here comes a speed hump, and it just seems to ride over it better and with less drama. Though you do get a bit more pitching and wallowing. That's not too much of a problem though. I'll tell you what's also not a problem, driving around in electric only mode in the Mercedes, because you have about twice the electric only range as you do in the BMW. But what's it like when you put your foot down and need to accelerate? Is it seamless, the pickup? So that seems to do a better job getting the motor, the petrol engine and the gearbox to work in harmony. I'm going to do it again, just floor it. Yeah, it responds a little bit quicker. When you start accelerating hard though, you do get a little bit of from that petrol motor. What the Mercedes isn't quite as good at as the BMW is handling. I think the steering's a little bit more vague. It doesn't go around bends with quite the same level of grip. But really, for how you're going to drive these hybrids, I don't think that matters all that much. And you're much better off just like sitting back and relaxing and cruising along. When you get out on the motorway, you're more likely to be able to use electric power for longer than in the BMW, just because of that added range. It does mean that you can actually save more fuel if you're doing longer journeys. And when you're going quickly on the motorway, this car is very quiet and relaxing and easy to travel in, and the seats are nice and comfy as well. It's a good long distance cruiser, though not quite as good as the diesel. However, it doesn't matter which C-Class you're in, They all feel blooming lovely when you're just sat in them driving along. They make you feel good about yourself just because of that interior design and the cool look to it. It feels like a more expensive car than the BMW. Finally then we come to the Tesla, and it feels very much like a more unique car than the other two. And the main reason for that is just the driving position. You've got such a low dash that you get great forward visibility. It really is quite special how it feels to sit in this car. It feels compact as well compared to the other two, even though it's pretty much the same size. Over bumps, it's good. It has a slightly firmer edge than the Mercedes, but it's not clunky in the same way that the BMW is. Yeah, the normal BMW, the non-hybrid version, does ride slightly better than this Tesla though. But yeah, this is still a comfy car and easy to drive around town. It's also quiet as well. And if you want to overtake, you just floor it and this thing takes off. There's no delay, it's instant power from the electric motor. You're not having to wait for a motor, engine and gearbox to all synchronize. It's just easy, you've got more control over the car. The handling's good as well, so it goes around bends really nicely as well. Better than the Mercedes, stays nice and flat because you've got all the batteries low down and it helps keep the center of gravity as low as possible. And then of course you've got that instant power for just smashing out of bends. It's surprisingly good fun, this car. The position of the steering wheel and the way it's quite small just adds to the sporty feel of the car. I like it. I think it's a fun car to drive. Now, admittedly, something like a BMW M3 ultimately is sporting the sportiest version of the Tesla, the performance model. But as an everyday car, this standard range plus actually feels sportier than the hybrid version of the BMW 3 Series and that Mercedes C-Class. And you can never tire of the instant response you get from that motor. It's funny to think that this car actually has the least amount of power on paper, but it feels the quickest by quite some margin. It really does just take off and it's super easy to just overtake other cars. And then when you're cruising along, even at high speed, it's nice and quiet because you never have a petrol engine kicking in. You do have a slight worry though occasionally looking at your range if you're going for long distances, and you will have to pull over and charge, whereas with those other cars you can just rely on the petrol engine to get you home. Whereas with this you are going to have to stop at some point. But obviously you have the benefit of the Tesla supercharger network, and you can just input a destination into your sat nav and it will take you via supercharger if it thinks you need a charge. It's all very simple and well thought out. Overall then, out of all the cars, I prefer to drive this Tesla Model 3. I think it's just a nicer experience than those two hybrids. Who ever thought that a motoring journalist would say that? A Tesla is better to drive than a Mercedes or a BMW. So then, what's my final verdict? Well, it's a little bit of a confusing one, this, because if I was going to be doing lots and lots of motorway miles, I would go for a diesel version of the C-Class. However, if I want some form of electrification between these two hybrids, once again, I think the Mercedes is the better choice because you can just go further on electric power. But if you're going to go for an electrified car, just go the whole hog, don't bother with a hybrid, and therefore get the Tesla. And I think for a lot of people nowadays, they could ditch these normal internal combustion engine cars or hybrids and quite happily live with the Tesla, and they are really nice to drive, and of course you can refuel it at home, and that's why it wins this test. I hope you'll enjoy the video. If you did, give it a like. Let me know whether you agree with my verdict in the comments below. Click on those windows there for more videos, and on that box there to sell your car through CarWow. We'll make sure you get a fair price for it.